Yep.
Well, listeners, one of my favorite Australian filmmakers has got a very special screening coming up on September the 22nd at Acme with a brand new film called My Darling in Stirling. And we thought today we would actually get Bill Mousoulis on the phone to chat a little bit about his brand new film because I know there's a lot of us out there who are very, very excited about this film, and I've had a chance to watch it. So, Bill, welcome to the program.
Wow, thanks, Dave. What a great introduction. You really do support my work, yeah.
Oh, Bill, well, I introduced to you years and years and years ago, I think, at a screening of your film A Nocturne by Jim Stamatakos,
Hmm.
another
Okay.
filmmaker. And Bill, you've done so much for Australian film over the years, but tell us a little bit about your brand new film. Where did the idea come about for this film?
Well, the idea basically came about from my film watching. I'm a huge cinephile, and I've always loved European cinema, especially French cinema, and I always really loved one particular musical that I saw years ago. That's The Umbrellas of Cherbourg by Jacques Demy from 1964. And this particular French musical, uh, I've seen other musicals over the years, of course, but this one really stood out at the time, and I think it still, stands out quite a bit as a striking, unique film. It stood out because, like, it's kind of set in the everyday world. At the time, Jacques Demy, really loved musicals, and he asked his producer to get him, millions of francs to make a song and dance spectacular, and it couldn't be raised the money. And this is the Nouvelle Vague time with Godard and Truffaut making the early films from the early 60s. And so he thought, I still want to do something with music, so I'll just kind of set it in an everyday environment, like everyday homes, and also a main shop, which is the shop that sells umbrellas. But what I'll also do is I'll have singing all the way throughout. So it's kind of like an operetta,
Yeah.
like a recitative operetta where you basically sing the dialogue, and there's no dance sequences in between at all. And this is what my film is too. It's like a local Adelaide version of an all singing, but very ordinary, set in the ordinary world. That's so I was very much inspired by that film, and also some other kind of modern musicals that have been around even recently, like La La Land or the film Annette by Leo Carax in France. Yeah, that's the basic backstory.
So knowing that you wanted to do a musical, but not the big Hollywood dance number musical that we're so used to, did that change how you went about sitting down and working on the story and working on the script at all?
It did. I mean, basically, also I had no funding, so and that's been the case for most of my films, not all of them. And so when you don't have any money and you just want to do it, really, really low budget, they call it micro budget or no budget. You have to be very creative when it comes to, creating a musical. Mainly, the first thing is the creation of the soundtrack. So. I did a bit of an alternative thing with the soundtrack where I just sourced the music online, instrumental tracks, and then basically I got singers in myself in one of my rooms in my house and recorded their voices, recorded their vocals. Of course, I had to write the songs. I had to write the melodies and the lyrics to accompany this music that I found. So it's by necessity almost that a no budget filmmaker will do certain things, but because of that, you can actually do something that is different to the norm. And in Australian cinema, there's actually the mainstream cinema in Australia is quite homogenized with a lot of thrillers and horrors that just kind of run in the same kind of way, and we're very familiar with them. And then there's all these kind of no budget films around as well, which can either just be imitations of those Hollywood genres, or can actually do something different. And my film does something different.
I'm almost embarrassed to ask this, Bill, but I've always known you as a filmmaker. Is songwriting something that you had done previously, or did you almost have to teach yourself that as a skill as well?
I actually did do a bit of songwriting. Actually, before I started making films, when I was 16 to 18, 19, I would just kind of, write songs and record them in a very lo-fi way at home, just with a cassette recorder or whatever I could find. So I've always had the ability to, write songs, and I've been in a band as well, even if it was just me with a couple of mates playing just a few kind of gigs. And so it's always been there. I've always loved music. So I'm a big music fan, starting kind of from, pop music in the 70s to like the punk and post-punk music of late 70s, early 80s. And I've music is my second love in terms of the arts, after film. Mm.
So once you had worked out that you wanted to do a musical, then how did the story develop? Did the story develop because of the songs that you were writing, or did you have a general story in mind before you started working on the music?
I did have a general story, and I did want to match a particular subject and tone and themes of the Umbrellas of Cherbourg from 1964. I was attracted to the idea that's in that film of, like, on the one hand presenting the thrill of first love and the joy and innocence involved with that, and then on the other hand presenting betrayal and tragedy and the melancholic kind of feelings that come, due to those occurrences. So my film was the story was very much influenced by that film, including the fact that it is a female character is the central character in Umbrellas of Cherbourg, played by Catherine Deneuve, rather than from the male's perspective, or even like an equal male female kind of combination. So in my film, the lead character, who's like a 19-year-old girl, she's the central character. So it's almost like a bit of a women's film tipping over into a kind of feminist film towards the end. Yeah.
So how did you go about casting? Did you have actors and actresses in mind from the very start, or did you have to go through an audition process?
I didn't have anyone. I think one of the main reasons is because it's the first film I've made in Adelaide. So prior to this, I made most of my features in Melbourne,
Yeah.
and also two features in Greece, when I was kind of half living there. And so I basically cast through Facebook, why not? There's a group called Adelaide Actors and Extras page or something like that. And so I did auditions and then, decided on the final cast. A couple of the characters, I didn't have too many choices, especially someone a male in their 50s who could, ride a motorbike and sort of sing at the same time or whatever. But not that he sings while he's riding the motorbike. That's the postman character. He sings when he's stationary. But um, yeah, so there was a bit of a audition process, and of course, being a no budget film, I couldn't offer a lot of money to people. The actors were contracted, but they'll basically see a little bit of money, as I have screenings and can, maybe get a few dollars in. Mm.
So the cast that you ended up with that we see on screen now, tell us what was it that attracted you to that cast? Like what did you feel that they brought to their roles, and what was it that impressed you as a filmmaker?
I think the main actress, Emily Dunda, she had exactly what I wanted, which was a kind of innocent look, or a feeling of innocence about her, and openness, where she's ready to experience something different in life, and also a kind of intelligence. So you can see in her face There's something working there, and as the film goes on, it's all about her, growing maturity. It's kind of like a rites of passage film away from, first love and the betrayal of first love. And the main male character, played by Henry Cooper, uh, what I found in him is that again, he had like good looks, which basically attracted the female character to him. But at the same time, as you watch him, you're not sure if he's maybe like someone who's just charming people and wanting people to approve of them and even love them. So, he basically is like a philanderer in the film. I don't mind if there's any spoilers going on here. And and so I felt he had a double edge there that I thought he could carry that kind of performance. And as for the other characters, they all suited the roles. It was about, especially the older female characters, just about having a little bit of emotion and also looking like ordinary people too. I don't like casting people with, who just look like actors who could be in soapies or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm.
Having every line sung, what kind of challenges did that provide on set as well for your cast?
Well, it was a little difficult for them because if as actors they have particular rhythms or movements in their body, they had to actually temper that to go with the rhythm of the song. Because in fact, if they're singing a line or two, they sort of do that maybe at the same time as doing some other action. So they have to juggle, moving about, picking up a cup of coffee, doing whatever, and still singing the lines to the other characters that are in, their space. But apart from that, the actors, basically just had to, learn the lyrics of the songs and how the phrasing was, because you have to be spot on with the lip sync, with the miming. And of course I didn't mind any mistakes made because I could cover it up in editing, just cut from one shot to the other and create a seamless performance out of what they were doing. Mm.
So, how did you find the shoot yourself as the director? How did you find the shoot?
Oh, it was enjoyable but stressful, like all shoots are,
Yeah.
basically. So you're always looking at the weather. You're always looking to see if there's, like when shooting in public, if there's any police around or security guards who might stop you and ask what you're doing. And because, it's not like we have official permits to do things. But it's all, even though film shooting for me is, and for most people is stressful, it's also quite extraordinary because you see your concept come to life. You actually see the actors doing certain moves and postures and with their lips and with their expressions, and you realize, okay, that's going to look pretty good on screen. I normally don't have a screen I look at on set. I can judge the frame. I know what the cinematographer's doing, and I can just see what is being captured. So it's very exciting at the same time as being stressful.
So, bringing the film to Melbourne for the Acme screening, how are you feeling ahead of this screening at Acme?
Yeah, pretty good. It's the film screened a few times in Adelaide, and a couple of interstate screenings, one overseas one, and Melbourne is my hometown, so I'm looking forward to presenting it to Melbourne, and there's a lot of people keen to see it. And I don't know, what can I say? I'm very excited about the screening, and yeah, hopefully there'll be a good audience there and a good response. And the film has got really good responses, but some responses that even whilst being very positive and enthusiastic, in Adelaide, there's certain people who think it's like such an offbeat, unusual film that it kind of almost tips over into being, bad filmmaking. but they're still very entertained watching it. So it's so bad it's good for some people. So it's what can you do? A film takes on a life of its own when you put it out there, and you may have a certain response in mind. Mind you, there's a bit of a tension in Adelaide. Certain people think it's a beautiful little art film, and others think it's so wacky and so weird that they're just flabbergasted watching it. So, but that's good. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a good film if it didn't have a little bit of debate about it. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So Bill, apart from My Darling in Stirling, are you working on any other projects at the moment as well? Can we expect another film project from you soon, or what's going on there?
Maybe not soon. The way I've been working more recently in the last 10, 15 years is to really kind of, I'm getting older as well, of course. So I tend to mull on the idea a bit first, even for a whole year or two. Mind you, when I was mulling on My Darling in Stirling, it was COVID time
Yeah.
in 2020 and 21. And so I had plenty of time to think about it. And so I've got a little idea, or I've got some images and feelings and thoughts in my head for a next project, but I'm just going very slowly on that because I'm just concentrating on getting more screenings for this film, and there'll be a few more in Australia in the next few months. Mm.
Definitely, that'd be fantastic. And are you hoping to put it into the festival circuit or anything as well?
Yeah, that was my first stop. I mean, it had its first screening late last year at the Adelaide Film Festival. That was its like world premiere,
Yep.
and that was good. But MIF, the Melbourne Film Festival rejected it. Also Revelation Perth rejected it. I've tried festivals overseas, and I've only got into one kind of smaller one. So I haven't tried a lot of festivals because no one can afford the entry fees for, submitting your film into like 100 or 500 festivals. It'd be
Yep.
just ridiculous. And so so I'm still looking for festivals, but now I've kind of entered the next phase of just organizing my own, but also in combination with the cinemas, sort of like my own, one-off events, Q&A events. So yeah, there's Melbourne, there's one coming up in Sydney, and there's a couple more I'm working on, especially another screening back in Adelaide where there seems to be an appetite for the film. So
Well, we can't wait to be able to see it at Acme. So I guess to finish off, what would you like to say to people out there who are thinking about coming along to Acme to watch My Darling in Stirling?
well, I'd like to encourage them to come along to see something different. If even if you're not into musicals and films made in, little towns in South Australia or whatever. It's just good to, expand your horizons and see something outside the mainstream because there is a lot of art and a lot of film art in this country that's sort of outside the margins, and it is good to support these people who make this kind of art, especially if they're younger. In my case, being 60 odd, I'm a veteran, as they say, and it doesn't. I mean, I know what the caper is about, and I get the screenings, and I have fun myself, even if sometimes people are walking out. But and there'll be a Q&A at the end with run by Philippa Hawker, who writes for like Sydney Morning Herald and the Australian and other papers. So that should be pretty good. And it's on a Sunday afternoon at 2:30 p.m. On September 22nd. So it's got that, kind of vibe, the Sunday afternoon vibe. And don't worry, people, there's no AFL final on at the same time. That will be the night before and on Friday night. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, Bill, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. It's always an honor to be able to sit down and chat with you. So thank you so much for coming on our show once again.
Thank you, Dave, for your support of independent cinema. I know you have more mainstream films on your website, but it's great when you give a bit of space to the more independents. Yeah.